Welcome to the Daily Allegory through Astrological Divination. Today I'm continuing my thesis, touching on yesterday, which was fermentation. Today is the distillation phase, a working thesis by me. Now, the first section I titled Abstract. Now, this thesis is my attempt to translate the distillation phase of alchemy into physics and math metaphor for human performance. Extracting a clean high-coherence signal, which is the intention, our intent, from a noisy biological system, which is a body that generates heat, electricity, and motion. I propose that temperature regulation and kinetic mobilization can be modeled as controllable inputs that change the gain and stability of a person's internal transmitter, the nervous system, which is our transmission system, without claiming anything supernatural as fact. So I'm basing this off of comprehensive constructs that are absolute in the scientific community. Now, I use the baseline figure of 111 watts as a rough average continuous human power output. Treat the body as a living transformer that reallocates energy between thermal, electrical, and mechanical channels, and frame as within, so without as a control systems principle. And I also chose 111 as an internal state constraint because of the numerological aspect of it. This is something we are drawing to us. Now, the internal state constraint shapes external action, as within, so without. I also layer in astrological placements, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Lilith patterns, Sagittarius and Pisces stellia, Jupiter and Cancer, Lilith and Scorpio, which are today's specific placements in the Jupiterian aspects, as a symbolic indexing system for timing, bias, and risk, not as a proof of causation. Now, why I call this distillation. In classical alchemy, distillation is not the first fire, it is repeated refinement, boil, condense, separate, repeat, until what's essential becomes concentrated. It's like getting rid of our bad habits and condensing ourselves into a compressed, better version of ourselves while eliminating waste. In scientific terms, distillation is a lot like filtering, which is removing noise, compression, keeping only the meaningful components, stabilization, preventing drift, focus, and amplification, increasing signal to noise ratio. In my model, the substance being distilled isn't gold, it's coherent intent. The ability to hold a goal steady and long enough for the body systems to align and execute without wasting energy on internal contradictions. The input will reflect the output, and the output is going to match the input. Now, the second aspect of this is the body as a power plant. 111 wattage as a starting constant. Now, a resting human outputs on the order of 100 wattage. Varies by person, activity, and I'm using 111 wattage as a symbolic nominal operating point for the system and due to its numerological properties. With physics anchor, power, can you hold this right here, power, number 2, power is going to be dE over dt. This is going to be our watts equals joules per second. Now, this is the body. The body is continuously converting chemical energy into heat through thermal energy. Mechanical work is going to be our movement, and electrical work energy is going to be our ion gradients and nerve signaling. Now, all right, put that aside for now. If you accept that, then amplifying will can't mean creating free energy. It has to mean redistributing and synchronizing what you already produce. Reducing losses, increasing coherence equals improving timing. That's the first distillation claim. Will is not extra energy. Will is improved control of energy. Now, the third section here is thermal regulation as a control knob. Temperature equals kinetic energy, but it's linked. Now, a quick correction that matters. Kinetic energy isn't measured in degrees. Degrees are temperature, and temperature is proportional to average molecular kinetic energy. So temperature is not the same as kinetic energy, but it does index it. So with that being said, thermal energy change simplified here, which I wrote on the board as number 3. You're going to have delta Q. Delta Q is going to equal our body mass being M. Body mass is M. C equals 3,500 joules divided by kilograms times Celsius. Effective specific heat, body is mostly water, with that consideration, is going to equal delta T equals change in body temperature. And the delta T is going to be a change in our body temperature. This matters because the nervous system is sensitive to temperature. Ion channel kinetic energy shifts, reaction rates shift, perception of effort shifts, vigilance and fatigue also shift with that temperature increase or decrease. So in my thesis, thermal regulation is like adjusting the operating temperature of an amplifier, not to become superhuman, but to move towards a stable, efficient regime where signal is clearer and noise is lower. Now, in the 4th model, we have neurotransisting wattage. This is a model, not a claim. Keep that in mind for anybody that, actually has a background in this stuff. Unlike myself, I am self-taught, and this is something that I am proposing to the world. It is, as I stated yesterday, my magnus opus. This is my work. So, neurons don't transmit watts like power cables, but neural activity does consume power. The brain uses approximately 20 watts at rest, and local regions fluctuate depending on task demands. I identify a conceptual quantity where neural transit power, NTP, and effective power budgeting supporting sustained attention, working memory, and executive control. Not a literal meter reading, more like a systems variable. Then the goal here becomes clear. Increase the fraction of total power that serves coherent action, decrease the fraction wasted on stress loops, rumination, fear, and conflict. This is going to lead us to our distillation equation, which you will see here in number 4. Distillation equation, power useful energy, and equals N, which is going to be our coherence efficiency bounded between 0 and 1, is going to be power total, where the power total equals 111 watts nominally. And again, as I stated, N is our coherence efficiency bounded between 0 and 1, and my will amplification is basically raised. In the 5th section of this, I have fire and air, kinetic energy, and ripple effects through elemental aspects. I use old element language as shorthand for physics channels. Fire equals kinetic mobilization, the body's readiness to do work, movement, posture, respiration, drive, and heat generation. And then air is going to be our ripple propagation. Now, how intention spreads through the system, breath rhythm, speech cadence, social influence, feedback loops. This mechanically here is going to be shown in the problem. KE equals half multiplied by mv squared. That's kinetic energy. But for a human signal, the real lever is not max KE, it's controlled transitions, start, stop, timing, and coordination. Now, in a controlled model here, you're going to have xt plus 1 equals axt plus but. Now, xt is going to be our internal state. This is going to be our arousal, attention, our coherence. UT is going to be the controlled inputs, focus, breath, posture, intention cues. A here is acting as our system dynamics, and B is how strongly input changes the state. Now, distillation is learning to tune the UT, which is our control input, so the system settles into a stable attractor, calm, alert, precise. Something that a surgeon, for example, might utilize when performing an operation. They need, a calm demeanor. They need to be alert for anything that can go wrong. They have to be precise in their incisions. Now, in the sixth section, we have ampere, watts, and the living transformer idea. Now, Ampere's law belongs to electromagnetism. I'm not claiming the body becomes a power station that shoots laser beams. That is not my prerogative here. I'm using EM as a metaphor for organized current flow. Now, the electrical relationship here is going to be P equals VI. P equals VI. A transformer doesn't create power, it trades voltage for current while ideally conserving power minus losses. So living transformer becomes, can a person trade high arousal, high noise for stable attention and stable usable output? Can they reduce resistive loss in behavior, panic, impulsivity, fragmentation, letting your mind run, in other words? In circuit analogy, resistance equals internal conflict and stress distractions. The current is going to be our behavioral throughput. The voltage here is going to be motivational drive, arousal. The power is going to be the effective work that is done in the world. What are we contributing to the collective? Now, distillation is going to come in with reduced resistance and stabilizing the current, leading us to the seventh part of this, the pseudo-satellite mind and disrupting terrestrial time. This is how I describe a real phenomenon in poetic language, subjective time dilation under attention. When focus is high, perceived time can slow down. Predictions improve and reaction selection feels earlier than anticipated. Not because you left Earth time, because cognition improved phase locking. You have better synchronization between sensory input and motor output with fewer internal interruptions. It's like you can hear your natural rhythm better. You're more in tune and aligned. You're more introspective, I guess would be the word, for lack of a better word. Mathematically, that's closer to reducing latency and jitter in a communications channel than breaking physics. Now, 8 is where astrology fits, symbolic indexing, not causation. I thread astrology through my thesis as a pattern language, a way to tag psychological biases and risk factors. Now, as I stated, I used today's specific outputs to write this around. Today, we have Jupiter trine Saturn in the 7th. This is going to be disciplined expansion in partnerships and systems, equating to stable alliances and long-range planning. With Jupiter trine Neptune in the 9th, this is going to be expansive imagination plus meaning-making equals visionary modeling, but risk of overreach. With Jupiter trine Lilith in the 12th, this is going to be power in the unseen. This is going to equate to comfort working with hidden variables, shadow integration. And then we have Jupiter square Chiron, and today specifically this is sitting in a sensitive degree position. This is growth through a wound, equates to trauma as a forcing function for refinement. We have Jupiter sitting in Cancer, which is protective instinct, the guardian bias, equates to the model is built to protect life, not dominate it. And with the Sagittarius stellium, Sun, Venus, Moon, Mercury, this is going to lead people to be truth-seeking, a synthesis, big picture coherence. This is going to equal drive to unify disciplines. We've got a Pisces stellium, North Node Saturn, Neptune, which has been an ongoing stellium, the last two. Karmic structure meets dissolution. This is going to equal build rigor without losing intuition. And then we have Lilith and Scorpio. It was kind of sitting there alone in the astrology wheel, so I just wanted to include this aspect. This is going to be comfort-facing taboo truth. This equates to willingness to name coercion, deception, and the hidden economy of power. Now, in my framing, the astrology doesn't cause the physics. It tags the human tendencies that decide whether the work stays honest or becomes an absolute delusion. Leading us to 9, what this thesis does and does not claim. It does claim human performance can be modeled as energy allocation plus coherence efficiency. Temperature, breath, posture, attention, and stress loops measurably affect the output. Distillation is a valid metaphor for repeated refinement of internal control, mastery of the self. Self-mastery is the goal here. in this path. It does not claim violation of conservation laws, guaranteed supernatural abilities, that anyone should attempt a dangerous temperature manipulation. Although, if I did have the funding and, a government contract, I'm sure we can, try to figure out a way to tweak these little variables, inputs and output flows, to actually create a more conducive energetic flow state within the human being itself. In conclusion, the distillation phase to me is the scientific art of making the internal system coherent enough that intention stops being a wish, because we don't want to wish. We are that we are, I am that I am. I think, therefore I am. We are not wishing. We are being and embodying, and thinking, seeing and believing. This is bending our own reality, not wishing upon a star. This is becoming a stable control signal for us. Using a nominal human power budget, again, 111 wattage, the body becomes a living transformer, not a generating impossible energy, but a refining efficiency, reducing noise, tightening timing, and converting arousal into usable work. Astrology, especially the Jupiter trines, Sagittarius stellium, and Pisces stellium, serve as my symbolic map of the human error modes that can distort the work. Grandiosity, escapism, obsession for some, not efficient behaviors. They're very unproductive. A lot of time gets wasted when you are on that spectrum. You're tilted one way. You're very unbalanced. And the virtues that stabilize it, though, within those same aspects, which is discipline, meaning, shadow, and honesty. Again, it's all about balance. There is a scale there. You just got to know how to select your input to produce your output. Now, if omnikinesis does exist at all in a rational framework, I believe it begins here, not with fantasy, but with coherence. Now, I'm going to end this with the invocation of the distilled signal, because this is what I do. Because I just like to speak things into reality as my form of manifestation, as I'm adding the quantum aspects into my life, and I'm integrating the mathematical partitions of it, and utilizing those to create my own philosophy to stand on. So this is my life's framework, and I like to share this with you guys. In the name of coherence, I call the work to clarity, not for power over others, but for mastery of the self. Not to break law, but to align with it. By the distillation of fire, let kinetic force be refined, not wasted. Heat gathered, not scattered. Movement governed by intention, rather than impulse. By the breath of air, let ripples travel cleanly through the system. Let noise fall away from signal, let timing become precise and true. By the green band of balance, the tether between perception and light, between body and field. Let wavelength steady the mind. Let intent ride a carrier that does not fracture. By the measure of 111 watts, may no energy be stolen from fear or frenzy, but redistributed through discipline, as a living transformer trades chaos for work. By Ampere's law and ordered vectors, let current loop without resistance. Let magnitude follow direction. Let the curl of the field be stable and contained. By the cycles written in the sky, Jupiter's expansion held by Saturn's structure, Neptune's vision anchored to form, Sagittarius seeking truth without illusion, Pisces dissolve in false certainty. Let wisdom guide ambition and restraint temper reach. Let the mind become a quiet satellite, observing without distortion, transmitting without interference, receiving without hunger. As within, so without, not as domination, but as correspondence, not as command, but as resonance. So the signal is distilled, so the system coheres. So intent becomes measurable, and probability yields to alignment. With the divine authority I contain, this law underlines law that is law, and so it is. And our affirmation for this is refine the fire, steady the breath, let coherence do the work. That's all I have for you guys today. I'll see you in the next one.